Hello and welcome. My name is Derek Franklin and I am the creator of the Action Map system. And let me just start out by saying that I'm pretty sure I know exactly why you're here. And that's because your life is very busy. You have all these things you need to manage, you need to track, you need to remember and think about. And your current way of dealing with all these things just really isn't working. Right? So instead of moving forward, what happens? Well, you start feeling like you're getting behind, and that stresses you out, and you're feeling overwhelmed, and then frustration sets in. It's just a horrible, horrible feeling. And so the question comes up, well, how do you fix it? Well, the way that you fix it is very simple, and that is that you identify the source of the problem, and then you tap into a solution that eliminates that problem. It's very, very simple. So, what's the problem? Well, the way that you manage your life lacks order and structure. That's it. I know that's kind of blunt, but that's it. So that breaks down to the fact that you have no process or system, or a very inefficient process or system to plug everything that life throws at you into. And so what happens as a result? Well, instead of feeling like you're moving ahead and getting things done like you want to, like we all want to, you don't. And so that leads to stress and that overwhelm and that frustration, like everything's just piling up on you, right? So let's talk about just a second why a system is so very, very important, okay? And I'd like to tell people the reason why systems are so great, and this applies to systems, all types of systems, including the Action Map system, but any system. The reason why they work so well and why they're so very important is all you have to do is look at our universe. And when you look at the universe, you can see that it is totally built around the concepts of order and structure. And you can see it in everything. From the way that the planets rotate around the sun and the moon rotates around the earth, to the laws of math and physics, you have these laws, this order and this structure. And it's really what makes everything just work properly and efficiently. If you didn't have this, what would happen? If you didn't have laws and order in these things, then you would essentially, the opposite is chaos. If you didn't know how things were going to work, or if laws weren't in place so that gravity worked the way it did, electricity worked the way it did, math worked the way it did, you wouldn't have computers. We'd be floating around in the air if we'd even exist. So these laws and order are essential for the universe to work the way that it does. And when you think about it, we're just part of that universe, aren't we? I mean, we're smack dab in the middle of it. And so if we work the way that the universe works, then we win. And if we don't work the way that the universe works, well, then we lose. And life becomes this unnecessary struggle. So does that make sense so far? And so when you consider this and you think about a system, well, a system, essentially all it does is it really helps you to manage your little part of the universe. So you're working within the laws and the rules of how the universe works efficiently. And if you manage your little part of the universe well, you get awesome results because you're working within that flow and order and structure of the universe. Once again, without order and structure, or very little order and structure, you're fighting against this flow, natural flow of the universe. So hopefully I've convinced you of that fact. So now that we've identified the problem and determined that the solution is a system that brings order and structure to your life, let me reveal to you what I think the solution looks like. And it's right here. This is the Action Map system. And what I'd like you to do is, at this moment, is just take about 10 seconds to look it over. Just get a brief overview of the entire map itself and look at its structure and its simplicity. Okay, so take about 10 seconds to do that, and then we'll come back and talk about why this is so unique. Now let's talk about the unique value of the Action Map system. So at the core of most productivity systems, what is it? It's a list, right? Everything is about the list. And there are some great list managers out there that really help you to manage lists very well. But there's a problem in the fact that they're deficient in one of the most important aspects of managing something as complex as our lives, at least in my opinion. And that is that they don't show you the big picture and context. So you can't see everything at once, and you can't see how all the pieces fit together. It's just list after list after list after list. So you might be asking yourself, well, what's the big deal? Why is seeing all this stuff important? Well, consider the idea of building a house with nothing but a list of instructions, step-by-step instructions. No pictures, no nothing other than a list of step-by-step instructions. Building a house that way. How hard and difficult would that be? It's doable, perhaps, but imagine how much easier it is to do something of that scale with a blueprint in your hand. So you could see how the end product is going to look like, and so you can see how all the pieces fit together. That's what a blueprint enables you to do, that a list of step-by-step instructions or just a list doesn't allow you to do. Or consider another example. Imagine driving from New York to California, and all you had was a list of turn-by-turn instructions. You know, turn left at this street, turn right here, go 10 miles, turn left, and so on. Once again, that trip is possible. It would be a real frustrating experience, in my opinion. I would think that would be a very frustrating experience. But imagine how much better that would be, and how much easier it would be if you had a map of the entire United States in front of you, where you could see all the roads, you could see all the cities, and you could get a feel for where you are at any point, how the distance that you've traveled from one location to another. You could see if you wanted to take a detour, you could find out where that place is that you wanted to go and find the road back to your original destination. That is the real power. Those two examples show you the real power of being able to see the big picture and understand context, or how pieces fit together. And this kind of context and seeing the big picture, the benefit is that it provides clarity and removes fear. So more clarity, the more clear you can get about anything, the better results you're going to have. And so a list is one way of providing some clarity and some structure, but a map like this really takes it to a whole new level, because you see everything at once, and you see how all these pieces of your life come together, which is missing a lot of times when you're just using lists and managing lists, right? So as the name implies, the Action Map system is built on this unique structure and process that delivers all these kinds of benefits of the big picture and context as it relates to managing your life, helping you make decisions, and getting things done. Now let me talk for a moment about how the Action Map system was born. So over the years, I've been interested in the idea of being a productive person. You know, productivity and being efficient. I've read tons of books and done a lot of things, gone to seminars, been to workshops, all to kind of understand how to run my life more efficient. And I've had to be this way, really, because in the past 10 years I've done a lot of stuff that I've needed to manage and take care of. I've written 5 books for Adobe Press over the years. I've self-published a bunch of other books. I've designed numerous products and projects that I've launched online. I've recorded dozens and dozens of videos for my business. I've maintained a blog in one form or another over the past 10 years and created dozens of websites. And in addition to all that, I'm a one-man business, and so I handle all the marketing, all the support, all the management, and all the things that come with creating and running a business. Marketing, design, programming, you name it. I've done it all. And that's just my business life, okay? My personal life is almost equally as busy. Now, I don't want to give you the impression that I'm a workaholic, though, because I'm not. My free time and the time that I spend with my friends and family is very, very important to me. I don't believe in 12, 14, 16-hour days. It's just ridiculous, and I won't do that. And so I've had to manage all these things. Now, why am I sharing this with you? Well, to help you to understand that when it comes to getting things done and taking action, I know what I'm talking about. I speak from experience. To get to this point, as I mentioned just a second ago, I tried all kinds of different methods and systems for managing my time. So I went from list making, I've done lists and notebooks, to everything to getting things done, which is very popular and a lot of people know about it, by David Allen, Getting Things Done. And I've tried all these different methods and processes, and along the way I really learned a lot of tips and strategies and ideas for being more productive and more efficient, but I always felt like something was really missing. And the reason why I felt that way is because I'm a visual thinker, and so trying to manage my life using these abstract lists and dialog boxes of software and windows and things like that was something that I was having a hard time wrapping my head around. And so one day I got this crazy idea, and I decided to mix my obsession and my love of mind mapping with some of these various strategies that I knew about and had learned about being more productive, just to see what I could come up with and see if it would be practical to use. And so after a few years of using it and testing and tweaking, I now have this awesome system that works really well for managing virtually every aspect of my life, which is the Action Map system. And fortunately, I've simplified it enough to the point where I can teach it to anyone, and anyone can learn to use it in their own life, and so they can start seeing the benefits of using this system in their own life, which is one of the reasons why I decided to create this course. So let's talk for a moment about being prepared to tweak the system. Okay, so my workflow of my life is different than yours. I can guarantee it. So how I use this system in my own personal life is going to be different from the way you do, but that's okay. Okay, so what I'm going to do in this course is just show you how the elements, what they are, how to use them, why I use them that way. And then once you have this kind of a grasp, this level of understanding of how the system works, how you implement it and use it in your own life is totally up to you. The most important thing that I want you to take away from this course is seeing how a functioning and practical system works, how it all comes together. Okay? Because once you have that level of understanding, you can tweak it to any way that you need to and want to, and understand why those tweaks work. So the most important thing is to have a deep understanding of how this machine comes together, how the pieces all work, and how they come together to make your life more efficient. So once you understand at that level, you take it from there, and I have confidence that you're smart enough to tweak it to fit your needs. So what do I mean by short-term pain brings long-term pleasure and results? Well, to be more productive over the long term, you're going to need to spend a little time setting up your system in the short term. Now, to integrate this system in your life, you're going to have to start doing things a little bit different than what you're used to. And as a result, this is going to feel uncomfortable maybe a little bit initially, but this is to be expected. Okay, you're going to do things that you're not normally used to doing. And whenever you do that, when you get out of your pattern or your routine, and start trying to implement and integrate a new system in your life and do these things different, it's going to feel uncomfortable. That's okay. Okay? This is what happens when you move beyond your comfort zone. Now, the problem is, and this is the reason why I want to talk about it, is that this short-term pain that you feel, this is something that often derails people, gets them off track. And they get this mindset, well, this is an improvement of my life. Improvements should feel good, and they should be easy and fun. It shouldn't cause me to feel uncomfortable or feel like it's a little bit of a struggle. And so what do? They quit, because to them, improvements equal easy. And that's true. They do equal easy, but you have to give them time. Okay, you're not going to feel that way initially. So I'm going to ask you to not give into this kind of thinking. When it gets going rough, there's an old saying, when the going gets rough, the rough get going. And so that's the kind of mindset that I want you to have. Because you can't give into this limited thinking of, once it starts getting a little bit uncomfortable due to you doing something different, that you're going to give up. Stick with it, okay? Because it's that kind of limited thinking that really holds people back. So push through any kind of uncomfortableness that you're going to initially feel. Stick with the system, and I promise you, it will eventually get easier, and it'll actually get more fun the more you use it and the more you integrate it and see the actual results that it's creating. So stick with it. Now, a system is only as good as your level of dedication to using it. So a system typically only works well when you use all of its components as intended, and the Action Map system is no different. So you have to be completely dedicated to using it regularly. Not sometimes, not some days, not for some things, because when you start doing it that way, then the whole thing starts falling apart. Okay, you can't be lazy and one day use scraps of paper for doing and managing parts of your life, and then when you're feeling real motivated and you want to really pump things up, start using the Action Map for getting things in order. You can't do it that way. You either have to be all in or all out. You've got to be stuck on this idea of mastering a single system. That should be your goal. I mean, imagine trying to drive 2 or 3 different cars to a single destination, a single goal. If you're trying to manage 2 or 3 different cars in driving to that destination, what's going to happen? Well, eventually it's going to be impossible to keep track of all of them. And then they're all 3 going to crash eventually, and you're not going to reach your destination. That's the same idea behind trying to use 3 different systems to manage your life. If you're doing it 3, 4 different ways, or even 2 different ways, it's going to come down crashing eventually. And you don't want that. So stick to the single system. And if you do this, you'll be amazed that eventually the level of confidence and control and clarity that this kind of approach gives you. Now, speaking of approach, let me tell you about mine when it comes to this course. I'm going to be concise, I'm going to be direct, and I'm going to be to the point about teaching you the system. And the reason is very simple, because I know that you want to get to using it, you want simplicity, and you don't need a bunch of fluff. You don't need a bunch of unnecessary words and time wasted doing things that really aren't of high value. So simplicity, that's going to be a key. And actually, I'm going to follow Albert Einstein's great advice. He has a quote that I actually, it's one of my favorite sayings, and this is the foundation of my approach. And his quote is, "Make everything as simple as possible, but not simpler." Okay? Which is great advice for any area of your life or business, but it's going to apply especially to how I teach the Action Map system to you. So based on this advice, the course is structured in a very simple way. What I'm going to do is I'm going to give you an overview, and then I'm going to follow that with a simple walkthrough, and then we're going to look at each element of the system, and I'm going to tell you why it's there, how it works, and what you need to do next to begin using it. So there's going to be action involved. And finally, I'm going to show you how to bring all these pieces of the system together. which is where you actually finally begin to see the practicality and the beauty of how it all works. So, if you're ready to start, let's begin building your action map. So what do you need to get started in using the action map system? Well, I'm going to recommend 3 tools right now that you need in order to put this system to use in your own life. Now, the first one I'm going to recommend is a mind mapping tool. And the reason why is because the action map is a mind map. So you'll need a mind mapping tool or software of some sort to use in order to put the action map system to work properly. Now, if you don't know what mind mapping is, or if you've never used it, or you're not very familiar with it, don't worry, because I'm going to give you everything you need to get up to speed, which is some very basic functionality. Alright, so don't sweat that. You'll be an expert, at least to the extent of being able to implement the action map system. So if you don't currently use or have a favorite mind mapping tool, I have 2 that I'd like to recommend. You'll find links to those at the bottom of this video. The first one is Mind Manager by Mindjet, mindjet.com. Now, Mind Manager is what I personally use majority of the time, and I like it. I've been a user of Mind Manager for over 10 years, and the reason why I like it is because it has a lot of features, a lot of powerful tools that I use and quite often. And so I like this a lot, and they do have a free trial that you can download. Now, the downside to Mind Manager is that it costs money, and it can be kind of pricey. So if you don't want to spend money on a mind mapping software of any kind, don't worry, my next recommendation will help you there. But if you want the most powerful mind mapping software, to me, that's Mind Manager. Maybe you'll get into mind mapping after you get done looking at this course. It's a very awesome way of organizing information of all kinds. Okay, so Mind Manager is my first recommendation. Download a free trial, but if you want the full version, expect to pay some cash for it. Now let's get around that. Okay, let's eliminate that downside. My next recommendation is MindMeister. Now, MindMeister at mindmeister.com, this is a free service, and the reason why I like MindMeister is because it is free, it's easy to use, it has all the functionalities that you need and then some in order to implement the action map system, and it's an online service, so you access it through your browser, whether it's a full browser or a mobile browser, so you can access this service. And they also have apps, so you can access it on a tablet or a phone. So that's another reason why I like it. It's accessible from virtually anywhere. Okay, so you don't have to be in front of your laptop in order to use it. Free, easy to use, and can be used anywhere. Those are my 2 recommendations for mind mapping software. And actually, I'm going to be using MindMeister in the Action Map course. So all the maps that you see in the course on the videos are going to be inside MindMeister, and because it just makes it easy to explain how to use it. Okay, so those are my mind mapping recommendations. Once again, you'll find links to both of these services at the bottom of this video. Now, the second thing I'm going to recommend is a calendar, and specifically Google Calendar. But a calendar is an essential part of the action map system. Okay, and so the reason why I'm recommending Google Calendar is for a number of the same reasons that I recommended MindMeister, is because Google Calendar is free, has a lot of powerful features, and it can be accessed from virtually any device, including a laptop, a tablet, a phone, whatever. And it is a Google service, obviously, so if you have a Gmail account or a YouTube account, you shouldn't have any problem getting access to Google Calendar already. Alright, so there's a link to this Google Calendar at the bottom of this video, and as we get further into this video, I'm going to dig into using Google Calendar. That's one of the first aspects to the system we're going to look at, and you're going to see why I recommend Google Calendar specifically for use inside the action map system. Okay, so look for that shortly. And finally, I'm going to recommend that you use Google Drive, and this is also a Google service. You can access it by going to drive.google.com, or there's a link below this video where you can access it. And this is if you have a Google account, Gmail, or YouTube or something like that, then you already have access to Google Drive. So let me explain real quick what Google Drive is. It really is an online, think of it as an online hard drive or storage area that you can use for creating and storing documents of all kinds. Now, why am I recommending this service? Well, there's a very good reason, but I'll leave it and explain it for later. Okay? So these three services: a mind mapping tool, go with MindMeister if you don't want to use Mind Manager, a calendar, Google Calendar, or any calendar really will work, but this is my recommendation, and Google Drive. Okay, so find links to those at the bottom of this video. Sign up for them when you get an opportunity, and we'll be using each of those in the Action Map system. Now let's look at the Action Map template itself. Okay, so as part of this course, I'm going to provide you with a basic template, which you can see on the screen right here, on which to build your own personal action map. And you'll find a link to this template at the bottom of this video. So this template can be used in most mind mapping tools, including the ones that I just recommended, Mind Manager and MindMeister. Okay, so before we go any further though, let me just share with you a couple of pointers for navigating and using the action map, especially within MindMeister, but if you use it inside Mind Manager, it's essentially the same basic functionality. Okay, so we're going to just do about 6 different things, explain 6 different simple functionalities of the mind map so you understand how to use them. And we'll begin by talking about branches. So what are branches? I'm going to be mentioning branches quite a bit within the entire course, so it's important that you understand what they are. What are branches? Well, a branch is nothing more than something that extends off something else. So actions is a branch of the center here, my action map. Triggers is a branch of my action map. Domains is a branch off of my action map, and the branch is signified by a line. Errands is a branch off of actions. Follow-ups is a branch off action. So that's really essentially what a branch is. Think of it like a branch on a tree. You know, it's a branch on a tree is one thing that extends off of another. Same thing within a mind map and inside the action map itself. So the next thing that we're going to talk about is the idea of adding branches, because that's one of the things that you're going to be doing as you get into the course and start using the action map itself. And there are a couple of ways of doing that. And the first thing you have to do is select the branch where you want to add a branch to, or where do you want to extend off of. So if I want to add something to the errands branch here, I select it first, and then I can come over here and hit the plus button there and type a name and give it a name, and there I have another branch. And if I want add another branch to the errands branch, I can either hit plus or hit insert on my keyboard and add another branch. And it's that simple. So to delete a branch, you just select it. So I'll select this one, hit delete key, and it's gone. So that's adding and removing branches. Now let's talk about editing individual branches. So selecting, you've already seen, you just click on it, and when you click on a branch, then the properties panel becomes active in relation to that specific branch. Okay, so if I want to change the properties of this branch right here that says new, I select it first. This panel here becomes active in relation to that branch. So I can change the size of the font, I can add bold to it, I can come over here and change some colors. If I want to change the text color, I'll push this button first and then choose a color. If I want to change the background, I'll click that button and choose a background color. So if I want to add icons or images to that branch, I can just click on one, or I can remove it, or I can even attach an image to a branch if I want. Now we're not going to be using this part of the properties panel very much. We'll be using the format, but not so much the images and icons. But if you want to play with that and do some things with it, feel free to. And finally, when you have a branch selected, you can come down here and add notes to a branch. such as that, and just start typing, or you can click this button right here, or this link, the advanced link, and it will open up an advanced note editor where you can add bullet points and things like that and format your text for your notes, and we'll be using this quite a bit too. Or and one thing, when you add a note to a branch, you'll see an icon here, and if you put your mouse over it, you'll get a preview of those notes. You can also attach links to a note or to a branch. So if I want to add a link to Google here, I just type in, if I can type in google.com, and now you'll see a new icon appears on the branch, and if I put my mouse over that, you'll see a link appears and a nice little thumbnail. And we'll be using this functionality throughout the course also. Very nice feature. You can also include files, attach a file to a branch, and those are the only real features that we're going to be talking about. So select a branch. You can edit its text by clicking it and giving it new text, or you can change the formatting or add notes and links to it once it's selected. Now let's talk about expanding and collapsing branches. So you may not want to see all this stuff at one time, and this is another great feature of mind maps, is that you can remove sections of the content by clicking the expand and collapse button. So any of these buttons you can click and it will collapse it down, or hit the plus button, it will bring it back up. And this is another functionality that we'll be using throughout the course of the Action Map system. Okay, so that's expanding and collapsing. It really is to help you to focus in. Let's say you want to focus in on actions only. You can do that by collapsing everything else and just looking at that. Now, how about moving and navigating the map? Well, there are two functionalities I want to share with you. First of all, moving the map around. And you've seen me do this so far. And moving the map around is really just a matter of clicking somewhere where there's not anything, not a branch or anything, clicking on the screen, holding down your mouse button, and moving the map around like that. Okay? Now another aspect of navigating and moving the map is zooming in and zooming out. You can come down to the bottom left, click the zoom button, and you get a slider, and you can use it to zoom in and zoom out. So you can see, let's zoom into the section of actions here so you can see them a little bit better. Alright, so let me shrink that back down again. And finally, let's talk about saving changes. And this is the easiest thing about using MindMeister, is that when you make a change, for example, I'm going to delete that, and so how do I save that? Well, I don't have to worry about it, because MindMeister automatically saves all my changes, which is a great feature. You add something, it saves it, delete something, saves it, make an edit to a branch, to its formatting or notes, it saves its automatic saving, which is a great time saver, so you don't have to even think about it. Okay, so that's the basic functionality of using the Action Map inside of MindMeister, and now you know everything that you need to know in order to use the Action Map inside of MindMeister effectively and efficiently. Now, in addition to the Action Map template that we just kind of looked at and worked with a little bit, you're also going to receive a couple of other mind maps as part of this course. And the first one is going to be an action map with some sample entries. So you can see how things work, where they go, and some sample entries really help solidify the purpose of the different elements of the action map itself. So you'll be getting an action map with some sample entries, and also you're going to also receive a mind map of the course content. And those are both going to be available to you at the end of the course. So after you've completed all the videos, and you'll receive copies of those two mind maps. Okay, so be looking for them at the end of the course. Now let me give you an overview of the entire action map system, so you have a clear idea of the different elements and where they are and how they kind of come together in a very basic way. We'll be getting into more details later, but just an overview. So we'll start by this idea of the action map being more than a to-do list manager. It's a life management system. And when you think about it, there are a lot of ways for managing lists of stuff, and we've already talked about this a little bit. And one of the more popular ways of managing lists is to create and to-do lists, especially, is to create a master list of everything that you need to do. And then at the end of the day or at the beginning of the morning, whichever, go to that master list, create a sub list of things that you want to work on for that day or the next day, and then go to work on that. And that can be a great system if all you have to do is manage to-dos. But if you're like me and like most everybody else, there are appointments to manage, there are decisions to make, there are processes that you use in your life, there are reference materials and content that you like to have access to, and all these different elements that go beyond to-dos. And the action map helps you to manage all these things, which is why I say that it helps you to get life done, not just your to-dos, because life involves more than just a list of to-dos. So keep that in mind. It's more than a to-do list manager. It's a life management system. It has a much broader scope than perhaps anything else that you've worked with up to this point. A place for everything and everything in its place. What does that mean? Well, the action map system is built around this universally powerful principle of a place for everything and everything in its place. Now, what does that mean? Well, it means that every element of the action map system has a specific purpose. Okay, so to use it effectively, you've got to start looking at everything that comes into your life that demands your time and resources, and then you need to start thinking about where those things fit into the map itself. And this is going to be hard at first. Like we talked about earlier, this is going to require some changes, doing things different than your normal routine. So it might seem hard at first, especially if you're used to just dealing with stuff kind of by the seat of your pants or off the cuff without having no real plan of why you're processing it a certain way. You might just scribble something down or save in a file for some reason or put something on your calendar without really having a clear idea of how that's going to all come together to help you to get things done. And you might forget that scrap of paper is there, or you might forget that you put something on your calendar. So you've got to change that behavior. All right? And when you give no thought to something like that, and you as maybe you're used to doing, and you don't have any real rhyme and reason and purpose and intention for managing the stuff that comes into your life a certain way, well, what happens? Well, you get chaos, right? So you've got to adopt a mindset when you're using the action map system. Since there is a place for everything and in everything in its place, you've got to adopt this mindset of stop, think, and process. So as something enters into your life that you need to take care of, whether it's an appointment you need to make or a project that you're about to start, or something's come up that you need to take care of tomorrow, whatever it may be, as opposed to just scribbling it down somewhere in the closest piece of paper or doing something with it and potentially forgetting about it, you have to just stop. Stop and think about what that thing is. And as you think about it, as we go through this course, I'm going to tell you some rules that apply to help you to think about this. But you need to stop, think about what that thing is, and then you need to process it some way using the action map. And that's a very simple way of doing things. Once you get used to doing it and you get into the habit of doing it, initially it's going to be kind of a challenge, but it's very important that you go through this process of stopping, thinking, and processing the action that's coming into your life so you can manage it properly using the action map system. Okay? So take time to put everything in its place. That's a crucial part of making this system work. Now let's talk about the main elements of the system, and let me go to the action map itself. Okay, so we can discuss some of these so you can look at this as we're going through this discussion. First of all, there's flow. That's element number one. Now what do I mean by flow? Well, flow is all the stuff that comes into your life that you need to interact with or deal with in some way. That includes your to-dos, your appointments, errands, emails, anything you're wanting to search on Google, events that you want to attend, web pages that you bookmarked, or decisions that you need to make, people you need to keep up with, things that you want to remember, just all these things and more. So that's flow. That's the first element of the system. Okay? The second main element of the system are locations. And you see locations here on the map. So locations are areas on the action map that you'll use to either hold action items that result from the flow that's coming into your life, or you'll use these locations to point to information that will help you to manage or take action on that flow in some way. So locations include your calendar, which you don't see on the map here, but your calendar is the only external element of the action map system. But that's one of the locations that you'll use to manage the flow coming into your life. The second location is this one right here, actions. The third is triggers, and the fourth is domains. And we'll be exploring each of these in more detail later. Okay, so just to recap up to this point, you have flow coming into your life, and that flow is managed and you take action on it using your calendar, actions, triggers, or domains. One of those four locations. The next element of the system is rules. Now rules are just exactly what they sound like. They're guidelines that you use to process and determine the location to place the flow items on your map as those items enter your life. So, for example, let's say that you've been given a task at work that you need to complete or do once a month. Okay? Well, there's a rule to help you to make sure that it gets done. So you know where to place it on the action map to make sure that that task gets done once a month. There's a rule for that. Or let's look at another example. Let's say you're driving around town or wherever and you find a place that you'd like to eat someday. How do you keep track of that so that you actually remember that you want to eat there and you do it one of these days? Well, there's a rule for helping you to remember to do that also. So as flow enters your life, you're going to ask, what rule handles this item? And that helps you determine where to put things on the map. And I'm going to provide you with a general set of rules, but as you get familiar with the system and you get comfortable with it, you may want to create various rules on your own, and you'll see how that works the more familiar with the system you get. Alright, so rules help you to process the flow that comes into your life with intention and purpose, so you can maintain control and get things done efficiently. Okay, just a real quick recap. Flow gets put in locations within the action map system based on rules. That's where we are up to this point. Now the next element are reviews. Now a review is the process of setting aside time to look over the map in order to maintain it, update it, and make sure that everything that needs your attention is getting it, and that your life's moving forward the way that you want it to move forward. And there are two types of reviews that are part of the action map system. One is a daily review, and the other is a weekly review. And the daily review is what you use to plan and accomplish each day. Now, if you do your daily review in the morning, you'll use it to plan what you want to accomplish for that day. If you do your daily review at the end of the day so you can plan the next day, well, you'll use it to plan the next day. And this daily review typically takes less than 3 minutes, may take you 5 depending on how busy of a day you're having or how busy of a person you are, but it's a very simple process that you use to plan each day. That's a daily review. Weekly review, that's where what you use to plan and accomplish the week ahead. Okay? So you'll also use the time of your weekly review to review your overall map, keep it up to date, and make sure that you have and maintain a clear picture of your life. Okay, and you can set aside as much time as you need to for this. It might take 20 minutes, it might take a half an hour, you may want to spend even more time on it. That's totally up to you. Probably at least 15 to 20 minutes to do it effectively, and that's once a week. That's a worthwhile investment of your time to make sure that your life is running smoothly. Okay, so daily and weekly reviews. Now the last element of the action map system is doing. And this is what it all comes down to, taking action. And not just any action, but the right action, so you can accomplish what you need to accomplish. And when it comes time to doing, I'm going to give you some simple but very powerful strategies for helping you to get it done. Okay? So now let me give you a walkthrough, or take you through a walkthrough, a very simple walkthrough of the action map itself, which you see on the screen. Okay? So as I mentioned earlier, the calendar, your calendar is the only external element of the action map system. And we'll be talking about that in just a moment. That's the first element that we're going to dig into. Now these other elements, actions, triggers, and domains. Let me just explain to you briefly, in a nutshell, what each of these do. Actions, this is the area of the action map that you use to get things done, to do. Everything you do is going to be largely stem from the things that you put right here. Okay, this is about taking action today, this week, and the next coming months, and this helps you to manage all that kind of stuff. Triggers are a way to remind you to take action on various regular intervals. Okay, and we'll be talking more about that as we get into the course also. So these help you to keep things flowing and moving forward, and as you need them to. Okay, as we talked about earlier, if you have a task that needs to be done once a month, I'll show you how to manage it using triggers. Now domains, this is going to be where you keep a lot of your reference based content. Okay, and I use domains myself in my own life and business for keeping templates and documents and processes that I manage, step-by-step processes that I use to get things done efficiently. That's what domains are used to hold. Okay, so each one of these has a specific purpose. Actions get things done, triggers to remember to do things at a certain time, and domains for support material for getting actions done. And that's pretty much the basic concept. Okay, so let's start digging into implementing the action map system in your life. And the first thing that we're going to do in order to make that a reality is we're going to dig into location number 1 of the action map system, which is your calendar. Okay, you'll remember there are 4 locations: your calendar, actions, triggers, and domains. So we're going to look at the other ones in later videos. For now, we're going to start with your calendar because it's a very crucial part of the entire system. So as part of this process, we're going to look at the rules for using your calendar. You'll remember that the action map system, everything has a rule to define why you're using that particular item a certain way. So we're going to look at the rules for using your calendar, some examples, and then the role of your calendar. And so let me just show you Google Calendar right here, and we're going to be working with this in just a second, but let me just explain to you what the rules are for using and adding events to your calendar. So you use your calendar to track anything that is very date and time specific. So it has to be done at 4:30 on Tuesday, or it has to be done at 2:30 on Monday. That's very date and time specific, with no room for flexibility. Okay, so this includes one-time events and recurring events, and I'll show you some examples of what I mean by that in just a second. Now, you also want to use your calendar for anything that you need to be reminded to do on a specific date or time, such as taking out the trash or taking medication. It's a great reminder tool. You may use something else already. There are a lot of mobile apps for reminding you to do different things. If you need a reminder, such as to take out the trash at a specific time or to take medications, then feel free to use that instead of Google Calendar. But I use it as a reminder tool also because it sends me an email, and I'm always in my email. So use it for that if you don't already have a reminder app on a phone or something else. Use it to remind you to do things that need to take place at a very specific date and time. Okay? Everything else that you need to be reminded to do, it gets turned into a trigger. And I know you don't know what a trigger is, but we'll explain that in a later video. Just remember, date and time specific stuff and reminders go in your calendar. Now, an important thing I want to bring out about calendars, because this seems to be a challenge for a lot of people, and that is your calendar is not a place for goal setting, it's not a place for notes, it's not a place for checklists, and it's definitely not a place to block out every single moment of your day, assuming that you're going to get everything done precisely as you lay it out in your calendar. It's not for any of those things. Just the two things that we talked about: date and time specific events and reminders. Okay? And what I mean by date and time specific events, let me just clarify that. These are things that after the scheduled time passes for that event, it's considered too late for you to take any further action on it. Of course, unless it gets rescheduled for another specific date and time. So, for example, if you have a meeting at 2 o'clock, that goes on your calendar, because after 2 o'clock, if it passes and you don't make it, well, then it's too late, right? So just keep those in mind. Hopefully that's clear enough for you. Now, let me just give you some examples of how to set this up and what I mean. And we're going to look at a single event, a one-time event, and then a recurring event and reminders. And you're going to see me put these into Google Calendar along the way, so you can kind of get a feel for how to use it for your own purposes. Okay? So the first thing we're going to do is, I've just found out that a fellow by the name of Bob wants me to have lunch with him next Monday. So that's at 1 p.m. So that's a very date and time specific event. Monday at 1 p.m. for an hour. So I go to my Google Calendar and I find next Monday, and actually I already have it there, so let me delete this so I can show it to you. Okay? This is what happens when you do a little bit of testing, but that's fine. Okay. So let's say at 1 p.m. next Monday, Bob wants to meet for lunch for an hour. So what I do, I come over here to Monday, the 11th of June at 1 p.m. I click here, and I type in the name of the event, which is Lunch with Bob. And I'm going to edit this event. Click that. And you'll see that the date is there. The time, it's a 1 hour event. That's a default event time, is 1 hour in Google Calendar. You can change that if you want. And the only thing I'm going to change here also is the event color, and I'll explain why in just a second. So this event is set up, and Lunch with Bob at 1 p.m. on Monday. Now, the next thing that I want to set up is a recurring event. And a recurring event is something that happens regularly in my life. Now, I attend a meeting every Thursday from 7:30 to 9:30 every Thursday. And so to add that to my calendar, it's very date and time specific, so I add that to my calendar. To do that, I go to a Thursday, one of these slots here for Thursday, go down to 7:30, click there, and type in Go to Meeting. To identify the event, click Edit Event, and the reason why I want to edit the event is two reasons. First of all, by default, it's only a 1 hour event. I want to change this to 2 hours, from 7:30 to 9:30. Also, I want to click the repeat button because, as I mentioned, this is a recurring event. It repeats weekly, every week, on Thursday, starting the 14th, and it never ends because I go to this meeting every week. I'll click Done there, and I'm going to leave everything else alone. I'll hit Save, and now I have two events. One is a one-time event, the other is a recurring event, and you can see if I move through my calendar, the recurring event appears every week right there. Now, the only other event that I want to put on my calendar is a reminder to take out the trash every Thursday at 10 p.m. because the trash guy shows up on Friday. So to add that reminder, I click and find Thursday, and that's a recurring event also. So I'll find Thursday here, 10 p.m. Click there. I'm going to put take out trash. Okay. And then I'm going to edit the event. and this is actually only about a 30-minute event, or I'm sorry, a 5-minute event, but I usually enter in about 15 minutes for short events like that. It repeats every week on Thursday, so that's okay. And the only other thing I'm going to do here is I want to be reminded of this event. So I'm going to come down here to the reminder section of the event page here. I'm going to click Add Event. I'm going to ask it to send me an email 1 hour before the event. Now you can add as many reminders if you want. Let's say I want to receive a text message 10 minutes before the event. I can do that too. So I've got a couple reminders here, and I'll hit Save. And now my calendar is complete. I have my one-time event here, my recurring event, and my reminder to take out the trash. And I'll just scroll through my calendar and you can see those different items there. Okay? So now I've set up my calendar. You've seen the basic functionality of setting up a calendar with time and specific events or reminders. Now let's say I want to pay my bills on Wednesday. But these bills don't need to be paid at a specific time on Wednesday, like 1 p.m. So that is not a calendar event, okay? Because it's not specific. If it's not specific, it doesn't go on your calendar. So I add that action to my triggers, which are things that I want to remember to take care of, but there's some leeway as to when I take care of them. And I'll be discussing triggers in a later video, but I just wanted to make clear the distinction, okay? Now let me give you a couple tips before we move on. First of all, when you create a calendar event, you want to include as much information in that event as possible, such as a name, a phone number, a list of things if you need to, so that it's handy inside that event when you need it. So Google Calendar makes this very easy, and I use the description box for adding notes. Okay? So whenever you have something you want to include, phone number, address, whatever, just add it right there. The second tip is that you'll see that I use two different colors for events. And one is the default color. And I use this, which is blue for this calendar. I use this color for any kind of events that are recurring, that are a regular part of my life. So these blue events, I know that they take up specific blocks of my time throughout the week, but they're there every week. So they're expected. Now if there's an event that's kind of out of the ordinary, such as my lunch with Bob, I don't have lunch with Bob every week. That's why I made this event red. So it kind of stands out when I'm reviewing my calendar. Alright, so I use two different colors. That's optional. You don't have to, but it just kind of helps me to see things clearly and what's out of the ordinary and what's kind of common in on my calendar. But the third tip I'm going to give you is to add events to your calendar as soon as they enter your flow. Okay? As soon as something enters your life, add it to your calendar if it needs to go there. Get it out of your head. And it's easy to do this with Google Calendar because not only is there a laptop version, but you can access it easily using your mobile device, Android, iPhone, whatever it may be. So you can add a calendar event that needs to go on there as soon as possible, because you don't want this hanging in your head and either forgetting about it or it just taking up energy. You don't want it taking up brain energy trying to remember it. So get it out of your head as quickly as possible and into your calendar. Alright, now let's talk about the role that the calendar plays in the Action Map system. It has a very basic purpose, and that is to help you to quickly and easily see specific blocks of time that you've committed to doing something already. Okay, so you'll review your calendar daily, and as part of that review you'll look and see what events you have coming up that are committed to specific blocks of time, so that you can make all your other plans and take all your other actions around those committed specific blocks of time. That's the main purpose of your calendar. Okay, now in a future video we'll be discussing a little bit more deeply about how your calendar integrates with the entire Action Map system. But what you know at this point is more than enough to get you started. Okay? Okay, so we're at the end of this video, video number 1. So let's talk about the next actions that you need to take. As I mentioned earlier on in this, the introduction of this course, this is going to be a very action-oriented course. I want you to get value from this course, and I want you to move on the things that I'm sharing with you and teaching to you, so you can actually start seeing some benefit and results in your life. Okay, so each video is going to have a next actions section, and for this video there are 3 things that I want you to do right after viewing this video. First of all, based on the recommendations I gave you for mind mapping tools earlier of Mind Manager and MindMeister, choose a mind mapping tool that you'd like to use for managing your action map. And if you're new to this, I'm going to recommend that you go with MindMeister. It's free, easy to use, and you'll be familiar with it a little bit since you're seeing it in this video. Okay, so choose a mind mapping tool. And if you go with MindMeister or you go with Mind Manager, whatever you do, spend a little time getting familiar with the software or the service. View the online help section if you want, and just play around with it a little bit so you can get used to using it and use some of the pointers and tips that I shared with you earlier. Now the next thing I want you to do is to open up the action map. Once you have your mind mapping tool in place, open up the action map template, and you'll find a link to the template below this video, and just look at it, explore it, expand some of the branches, add stuff to it if you want, play around with it however you want. Just kind of pay attention to how it's organized and structured, okay, so you can get a little bit familiar with it. And finally, set up your Google Calendar. Okay, so go to Google Calendar, and if you don't have a Gmail or a Google account yet, get one, and go to Google Calendar, learn the basics of using the service, enter some events, empty your head with any kind of events that fit the criteria, the rules that I shared with you earlier about date and time specific. If you have anything like that in your life, enter those into your calendar, okay, including any kind of recurring events. And you want to think about anything that's on your schedule for today, tomorrow, this week, or up to 3 months from now. Okay, so add those items to your calendar if they fit the rules that we talked about earlier. And then set up any events that you want to act as reminders, such as taking out the trash, taking medication at a certain time, or something similar. Okay, so those are the 3 things that I want you to do. Choose a mind mapping tool, explore the action map itself, and then set up Google Calendar and enter some events that are part of your life right now if they fit the rules that we talked about. Now in the next video, we're going to begin working with the actual action map itself, and you're going to get to learn how to manage and get done what you need to take care of today, this week, and several months ahead. Alright, so look for that soon, and thanks for watching.